This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Arts Commission at our monthly meeting. Today is September 10th. My name is Adrielle Farr, Director of Arts and Cultural Affairs for the City of Kingston and organizer for our virtual meeting tonight. Before we begin our meeting, we'd like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help us navigate this system as feedback. To navigate this system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Commission members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website at a later date. If you are not included on the agenda, please be respectful and courteous to our commission members by remaining muted. If you have any audio issues, send a text message to the following number, 845-399-9072, or utilize the chat. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who's behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Arts Commission members Ann Bailey, Peter Criswell, Lara Giordano, Maria Elena Ferrer, Ione, Linda Marston-Reed, Ward Mintz, and Lynn Woods. We have our non-voting council members, Patrick O'Reilly, and guests to the commission include Richard Frumes and Rennie Scott Childress. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the City of Kingston, I wish you and your family good health. I now turn the floor over to Lara Giordano, who will call the meeting to order.
I'm being respectful. Okay. I called the meeting to order, and has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? And are there any comments, concerns, redos? Okay. Anyone want to move to accept the minutes? Anne, second. Peter, Maria, minutes approved. Okay. So I guess we're going to start the meeting here today with some sharing of information about the Academy Green discussion that our public art policy group had last week, I guess. And I have Linda's name down to lead the discussion.
I hope it'll be a collaborative report back. We had Ward there, and Maria Elena, and Richard was there as a guest. I felt it was a really positive meeting. I was happy that we had a discussion and they felt comfortable enough to hear what we had to say about our concerns. And we discovered some interesting things as we were sitting there listening. And that is that they don't really own the Academy Green, and the City of Kingston controls like what gets put into it. I forget the name of the trustee, and maybe it doesn't matter who mentioned this, but one of the trustees said that there was a fairly large battle maybe 10, 20 years ago over putting the bus shelter there. And so in the past, they've been very opposed to any additions. People have mentioned that there is, the fountain got added in and the trustees approved that. So the other interesting thing that we heard is that they really don't meet very often. And I believe they said that they hadn't met for 15 years together. And so we were extremely honored that they all came together to hear just, our concerns. And when we left, I felt like they were open to next steps. So Maria Elena, Ward, and Anne, I'm sure you can all add something to that. That's a very slim framework of what happened.
Peter.
Yeah, just
Peter.
I'm really unclear on how they have their power. Is it somehow given to them by city, or did they God above, Rennie? Okay, thank you. That clears things up for me. But if anybody actually really knows the answer to that, I'd be so curious. Where do they get it, and what is their power?
Do you want
Word-
The trustees of the Academy Green, from what we understand, actually owned the land that the sculptures are on, because it had been the site of the Kingston Academy. And they gave the land to the city with, it's part of an agreement. So that's where their power comes from. But if you ask them if there is a 501c3, that they have, that they operate out of, no. So it seems to be more, and maybe Rennie knows more about this, but it seems to be more of an agreement. I presume it's written somewhere, and Addie, you may know as well.
It's a charter. It's a charter.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are considered like a charter since 17 something. I don't remember exactly the date. And I guess that those are, they are the legal owners of the land, but as the agreement that they did at the beginning of the 20th century, I believe, that it was when the high school was built. So when they signed this agreement with the city, in which they keep the right to decide what is going to be added to that space, but the city is taking care of the space, right? Something like that was what they say.
Yes.
Another interesting data that we found in that meeting is that the city owns the statues. And according to them, they have a say in what is being added to the green, but not what is taken off the green.
I'm
Oh.
sorry, I'm really confused, because Ward said the city owns the property, and Maria Elena, you just said they own the property. So what's real?
I understood that they somehow, well, Ward, maybe you can explain that better.
Own or not own, they gave control over the property to the city. It was my understanding that the city did own it, but with an agreement with that they would
Yes.
continue to be involved, as Maria Elena described.
I have a question. The city got a grant for that property, is that correct?
We did not talk about that.
Yes.
Because
I
and I
don't-
wonder
I don't
what
know.
the role of the trustees was with the grant, because I think there were some changes that were planned under the grant.
Was
Well,
that the thing about the checkerboards and the seating and everything?
I thought they were going to add a visitor center, and
Oh, I haven't heard about this. That was not brought up. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about
I
that.
just wondered what their role was.
When they described what they had been successful in not allowing, they talked about more recreational things,
Right.
like the checkerboards, like extra seating,
Yes.
and that was like absolutely not. And we also knew that and found out that the sculptures had received a cleaning. Conservator came in and did a professional cleaning and polishing of the sculptures. And so I asked where the funds came from for that, and we were told it was the Garden Club.
Yeah.
Which made sense because
I think the
there's a lot
junior
of-
league. I think it was the junior league.
no, it was a garden club.
It was a garden club. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another detail, if I can add, that they made a distinction also that this is not a park, this is not a square, it's a green, a public space. That was quite interesting to me, that they make that So it's not really a park. The public can use it, but it's quite an interesting situation there. Because also obviously we wanted to know their position in regard to the issue that we were discussing or we wanted to discuss, and they don't have an official position on that. And if I remember correctly, they somehow requested that after we have whatever we have to do or say or agree, present a proposal to the city of what we consider or what we found out with the community should happen or not. And then that proposal coming from the city to them, they will consider whatever it is. But they don't have a position at this point, but they made it clear that they have a strong say in what is added to the space, but nobody's taking off.
But may I say something? But you say what is added to the space, but not what is taken away from the space.
Yep.
Right.
And the statues belong to the city. Is that correct? I just heard that. So that so the city bought those statues or owns them. That woman gave them to, they brought them up from the Mercantile Bank and so forth. Yeah. So if the city owns the statues, don't we have to deal with the city? I mean,
any changes have to go before the Common Council, and it would have to be a petition.
One of the things that we talked about, of course, is the possibility of adding information to the sculptures so that people could learn more about who these individuals were. And and I have to say that there wasn't tremendous opposition.
No, I felt that was very positive.
You mean they were open to it?
Yes.
Or going too far? They were open to it.
We were surprised because we expected, Kevin Quilty set this up. He's the chair of the trustees, and he set this up, and he said, "Why don't we have 3 or 4 of you, or whoever, and then there'll be the same amount of us." And all of a sudden, a dozen people are there.
They're all there. Yeah.
And they're all like, like, who? This is because they never met before, in modern times. So they were very interested and and engaged by this. And at one point I said we would be very interested in hearing from each of you about what your feelings are about this place and what it means to you. And I was stopped dead by one of their trustees. I would say possibly their counsel, who said that is not what we're here for today. We don't want each of us to say anything to you about how we feel about this. It's like, fine, whatever.
oh really?
But I would add to that over time things relaxed, and really the conversation was about how do we address here and now, and how do we look at our past, not erase it, but put it in the context of where we are now as human beings in our consciousness. So they were quite willing to begin to talk about things when we didn't see each other as the enemy, and we saw each other as the possibility of building a bridge and making something really relevant to today and how we live today, and also speak to history and how we honor people for certain reasons, but in modern times, some of the things that they did weren't so good. And so how do we talk about that? I've been going to seminars in Boston. They have a lot of statues there, and they have a lot of parks there and open spaces. And I always look to see what other cities of note are doing. And I think it's important for us all to learn from this experience and not overreact, but come up with something that we feel is well researched and well thought out. And I think we will be asked for a position eventually on all of this. And it's a deeper conversation. We can't do it in a commission meeting. It would be nice if we could meet almost casually, or some of us. I mean, I think it should be all of us, and talk about this and what it means to us and what it means to Kingston. And could we be a lead city in how we deal with this? Because I said to them, look, we're here because we love Kingston, and we see stuff bubbling up that you may not see at this time. And by putting your head in the sand is not going to make this go away. This is going to bubble up and bubble up and bubble up. And one day you may find those statues on the ground or with their heads off, whatever. So let's create the conversation. Let's start listening to each other. Let's start talking and think about solutions. And they seemed really open to that. That's what I would tell you. They seemed really, they're all great people. What can I tell you? You know, we got to stop seeing this sort of us and them. This is us. We're one. So, yeah.
They're aware, I assume, that a lot of the Black Lives Matter marches start from Academy Green. I mean, it's kind of become the town square in terms of the discussion, which I think is really interesting. I mean, there was a demonstration there, I think last night or day before last.
Yeah.
It's become this kind of seminal public space where these issues are being addressed out front. Are they aware of that, I wonder?
They are.
Okay.
Is there a process for people to use Academy Green? Is it a place where you have to get a permit from the city to be able to hold an event or a rally or anything like that?
Not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, so Academy Green is, we have parks that you can rent more traditionally through the City of Kingston website, through the Classic Forum. But then there are other parks like Tierra Gallo Park, Academy Green, where you put in a request to Parks and Rec. I don't believe that we've been coordinating with folks who've been using Academy Green for the past, I think it's 2 months now, to coordinate the Walk for Black Lives. But generally, if you want to use that space, you do kind of have to at least have some sort of communication with Parks and Rec.
Yeah, because there's often liability issues and you just want to get some person who's the organizer. I just think that it's interesting that there's been no communication about that, and this group has not weighed in at all on a very public use of this space, which before this, I mean, there was some public use of it, but much, much less focus. So I just find that interesting.
Maria Elena?
I just wanted to add that at least my big take from meeting with them is that basically the ball is in our side, in the sense that it's not really on them completely at this point, the discussion that we are trying to have, although they are more than, as Anne said, more than open to participate in that conversation, but they want mostly to see how the conversation develops in the community, with the city, with the neighbors, with everybody involved. And once the city as an entity comes out with a proposal is when they are going to play, or they are going to move their whatever aspect they have to do in here. So I think that we some sort of like a continue agreeing that we want to have this conversation with everybody in Kingston, with people in favor, against, or with not a position at all, even with people that had no clue what is going on, people with different proposals, what we can add, what we can take, you know, to just for us as a City Arts Commission to somehow facilitate, I don't know if to lead, but at least to facilitate those conversations, work together with the community in any kind of proposal or proposals that eventually will make it to the Common Council and then the city as a whole having public hearing. I don't know exactly the process. Maybe Rennie can tell us a little bit about that. And once all that process happens, is when they will jump in and will realize how much of the power, whatever it is that they have on the academic green, involves them to make a decision or not. Because definitely, they, as words say, they didn't want to verbalize their position, although we had some clues. Yes.
Ward.
I've been asked on behalf of a former member of the Arts Commission, whose name will remain anonymous at this moment. No, by our friend and colleague Richard, who wonders whether the Arts Commission shouldn't think seriously about expanding the membership on the Public Art Committee to beyond Arts Commission members and former members, and whether that would be an effective way of helping the conversation and coming to a collective decision.
You mean expanding it to the community? To
individuals who we think would add substantially to our discussions.
I think the only, I think you would, if you were to do that, I think you might have to kind of make it open to everyone, and then have like a number of folks that you're thinking of adding to the commission or to the committee, maybe. Just thinking like kind of like the way city traditionally tends to do things, that might make it feel a little bit more transparent so that like folks can join in. So maybe that's something worth considering. I also was wondering, has anybody spoken to, have we been able to connect with anybody who's been on, who's been a part of the conversation about removal, or who has kind of been charging that? I feel like that might be kind of interesting as well. I feel like we've talked a lot with, we've talked with the Academy Green folks. So kind of wondering if anybody in their own work has been connecting with any people from that side.
Or there's two petitions, correct? There's the petition to remove, and there's also a petition to maintain it, I think.
Oh, I only knew about the removal one. I didn't know about the
There's another counter petition that started, and I was wondering about the timing of all this. I guess we don't know, right? We'd have to contact the petitioners.
I think it came later, the second one. I mean, no,
it's definitely a reaction to the first one.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, very quick in regard to the petitions, because both of the petitions, we are not clear who are they making the petition to, and it looked like they are still gathering the signatures. So we assume that once they hit the target signatures, that if I remember correctly, is like 5,000 or something like that, then they will forward the formal petition to, we assume, the city of Kingston. We don't really know. So I guess that until that point, we don't know exactly what they are planning to do or not. My concern, and I think that it was the concern of several of the members, is that because this petition is online, way too many of those signatures had nothing to do with Kingston. In both, we're talking about both of the petition. So we don't really know how much that really has an input from the community. And I think that makes even more important for us to facilitate those conversations with Kingstonians, with residents of the city. I don't know. But yes, I think that next steps in this process is to talk to everybody, the people that is moving those petitions, the people that, but I personally don't have any access to the people that is moving that. I guess that we can just start making those connections.
Is it possible, excuse me, Peter, just for 1 second, please. Is it possible to, given that there's going to have to be some work done in if we do go ahead in coordinating meetings and getting people together, to make this part of the Arts Master Plan?
I mean, I think that that's an opportunity. The one thing about the Arts and Culture Master Plan is that there's a limit on kind of what we've put into the scope of work for our consultants. So, you know, it's a negotiation. So if we want to maybe give up one of our meetings about displacement or about arts businesses or about, you know, the myriad of other things we want to discuss to talk about the statues, we could investigate doing that. But I do just want to kind of be upfront and say that it would probably be something that we'd have to negotiate about. We can always use the Engage Kingston website however we want, so it doesn't necessarily have to be something that our consultants work on. So if we want to use those arts and culture master plan resources, we can definitely do that. So that's an option. And, you know, if we kind of think a little bit about what we want that to look like, I'm totally happy to have that conversation and figure out what that looks like.
I would at least be interested to see if Lord has, I mean, I know this is a kind of fresh issue, but I would be interested to see if they've worked with other cities where this has come up and it's been part of other plans, at least. You know, if we could at least ask them that.
Yeah, I think we
Peter,
need,
and
wait,
then
oh.
Renee. Peter,
Oh,
and then
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what Ward was saying about expanding the committee, and I'm in favor of that, but I was actually hoping with what you said next, I was hoping that it dovetailed into the work of the Arts Master Plan, because the public art conversation is part of the Arts Master Plan. So if we can kind of weave that in and say, what would be an ideal structure for understanding our public art? Is it a committee that's a subcommittee of the Arts Commission, or is it its own stand, whatever it is? But I think that the two, we have an opportunity here to like figure this out in a long range situation.
Renee?
If you're thinking about adding those statues into your discussion of the Arts Master Plan, do you already have a section devoted to public statuary in general? Because that's what I think you should do. You should really think about all of it, because there's a number of statues, for example, that are in front of City Hall. There are other statues that are around town in public places as well. And that would be one way too of kind of stepping back from the specific conflict that's related to those specific statues. So that would just be one thing that I would hope that you could do if you were going to talk about statues, step back from it. And also, if you want to talk about conversations, that's why I'm here today. So if you'd like to do that, I'm happy to give you a couple of ideas that we've been talking about, but I can also wait till you're at the end of your discussion. I don't want to intervene too early.
When you say section, you mean of the comprehensive plan? It's a section of what? When you said there's a section?
The Arts Master Plan, you were talking about having a specific number of meetings.
Right. I thought you said there was a section on public statuary. You were just talking about the master plan.
I'm saying, Addie, you all were talking about the possibility of exchanging one of your discussions with the consultants out and swapping in a discussion of these statues. I'm just saying, if you do that, I think the best strategy there would be to talk about public statuary in general, and these would then be part of that discussion.
All right.
Because like I said, I can see a potential for, you know, one side or another or some group getting concerned about the pieces that are in front of City Hall, or that might go in front of the high school, any of these sorts of venues.
Ward, please.
Sorry. I didn't want to speak until, you know, I heard your mellifluous voice. I want to, but, you know, the art, for me, the Arts Master Plan, the really serious issue that involves public art is this, is a possibility of doing a % for art. And I think it's a lot juicier, you know, to talk about the statues than it is, you know, to do the work trying to get the city to agree to, you know, with a capital project to include a % for art. So I would just ask us that we not forget that that is an extremely important issue that when we're talking about art in public places.
Brandy, did you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about the meetings thing so we could just learn a little bit about that?
If this is the appropriate time, I'm happy to.
Sure.
All right. So I've met with the young woman who's running the petition drive to remove the statues. Met with Addie. We've talked with a couple of people about this, and there's a community organizer named Peter Block who's written a book called Community, The Structure of Belonging. And I think that following some of his concepts would be really powerful in terms of talking about the statues. A couple of things he talks about. One is the power of small groups. And the idea is that you have small groups, you don't ask them what the problem is so that they solve it. You ask a series of questions that initiate conversations. And the kinds of questions that you ask, he puts it in terms of they cause stress, not in the sense of you lose your hair or you start sweating profusely, but in the sense that you have to make a choice in answering the question. So one of the general questions, for example, is what crossroads are you at right now? And so if you're talking in the context of these statues, that allows people to bring in different kinds of sentiments, feelings, stories, and from those discussions, possibilities arise. And this is one of the things that's very clear to me, is that a lot of the people who are adamantly against the statues are also recent transplants here, that is within the last 50 years. So, last 10 years or so. And most of the people that I've met who are in favor of keeping them are people who've lived here for a long time. And to some degree, because you see there are two petitions, those two sides are not going to readily come together. So another crucial thing about the approach that Block recommends is intentional invitations. And so what you do is you reach out to specific people, you give them a sense that they have a choice, they can take part in this conversation. If they do, there's a commitment that's required. But because they're generating the possibilities, the commitment grows as they take part. So you're not trying to force people, you're also not reaching out to the same people over and over and over again. It also allows for people, because you're intentionally inviting folks to one of these discussions, you're having an array of different possibilities, an array of gifts that people bring to that conversation. And so that's what I've been looking at and thinking about and talking with some people about. I've talked with a couple of people in the faith-based community about this. So, the idea would then to be develop, it's not hard to figure out the questions. So there would be simply a process of getting some folks who would have the wherewithal, the time to learn a couple of questions, be able to ask them, and then also to have the willpower not to direct the conversation, because the crucial thing that Block talks about with the questioner is that that person is a convener. They're simply there to bring folks together. There's a couple of things he advises against, like, the convener should preclude people from giving advice, saying, here's what you should do, or trying to get to a prearranged conclusion. And so this also allows people to present themselves in a different way so that they're not beginning from this position of opposition where they're saying, I've got to prove my side. Instead, they're meeting, as Anne said, we're an us. And that, I think, is crucial. And so, you have a number of these conversations, organize them in different parts of town or different virtual meetings here, have different people running them, take notes, see what happens, and then work with that to come to some kind of action.
Good advice.
Great.
Thank you.
Is there any sort of guidelines of how to be a convener? Like, is there like a how-to? So read the book.
There's also, if you want, there's he does have a chapter at the end it's a programmatic overview. It's a little bit helpful, but it gives you a sense of some of the things. And he's got 6 or so different kinds of conversations. And they have different kinds of focuses. So one of them, for instance, one of the key questions is, how have you contributed to the problem you're looking at? Right, so that's another way of getting somebody to get committed to something, and it also removes them from that us versus them kind of mentality.
Lynn?
Based on your conversations, Rennie, and what you've learned from that book, I mean, who ideally would be organizing those conversations? The commission, the city? I mean, at the commission, we're talking about having a position on this, but obviously it would have to be after a lot of community input. I'm just unclear about how that would fit with the commission and who would oversee all this.
To a great extent, Block is talking about a way of working with folks without the kind of usual government process. So the usual government process is we see a problem, we hire a consultant, we study it, the consultant gives us a plan, we get the plan, we realize it's going to cost too much, we don't do it, and what's happened. So the idea here is that you actively get people committed, and in the end, it's that commitment that creates some kind of outcome. So it's not a preordained outcome. It runs counter to some of the things we think of as government. But I think with the Arts Commission, you all are, this is a compliment, loose enough that you can, I think, work with this kind of approach. And that would be the thing. So I've talked, like I said, to some folks in the faith-based community. I think we could get some of them to run some conversations along these lines. If you all wanted to look at some of the materials, we can also, you don't necessarily have to read the book. I can sit down with you and we can go over the kinds of questions to ask. We could run a small sample of an event, of a conversation even. And so that way, we then begin to think about folks to invite. And that's where, that's one way I think members of the Common Council could be creatively involved, because we know a fair number of people in the community. I know people in Third Ward, for example, who aren't involved per se, but who are doing really interesting things. Like there's this guy lives a couple of blocks away named Jerry Harrington. And so, we could get him involved in something like this. There's just a number of people around who are interesting, fascinating, and they're not necessarily going to join a commission or a board, but they would have time for a conversation that lasts for, an hour and a half, 2 hours. So there's an element of trust that's involved. You kind of have to let the process unfold. We can always step back in the end and pull rank as government officials and a commission on the arts and, produce our recommendations. But the other advantage of this is that it creates, at least in my experiences with it, it creates a bonding, even as people don't necessarily see eye to eye. It allows them to talk to each other and have that different basis of connection, so that I don't want to go as far as to say they develop respect for one another, but they at least find a higher tolerance.
Maria Elena?
Yeah, just back in with that, I think that's what I said before. I don't know if we will lead that conversation or help to facilitate that conversation. And I think that the principle of mediations are going to play a good role here for us. I completely agree with what you say, Rennie. And I think that it's easy for me to say it because I was not raised in this society. For me, it's easy not to think the American way. But I will ask you the same way that Rennie asked, not to think that officially it goes to the authorities and then they will decide and hire a consultant. I would ask the commission try to think about this in a different way of that it's been handling so far, because something that I see quite often, and I had that experience in another committee a month ago, is that because, for instance, in Washington, D.C., the mayor decided to paint the mural in the street about Black Lives Matter, then everybody wanted to do the same here in Broadway or in First Street just because. And, you know, when you had that conversation and ask, well, what is the real purpose of you doing that? Is because you see a real value, or just because that's now is the trend? And then when you have the conversation, how much that can help or not, then the outcome can be different. I know it's important to know what is happening in other places, because that will help us to see how others are addressing the same issues. But we cannot forget that the local situation can be different from the other places. And it's very hard to have the conversation without directing people to the point that we wanted them to. And normally we ask the people, oh, do you agree with that we should shut down the status from the academic green that I've been there for 50 years? Well, obviously that's not the kind of question that we would like, but how do you feel about certain things? And maybe in general, as for instance, for the justice reform that we are discussing a lot, people is saying like, okay, we should ask people, what do they think about restorative justice? And I was like, well, you asked that and you are already putting something there, but what if you ask them, do you feel safe in this community? And then you have a conversation. Or what doesn't make you feel safe? So do you feel excluded in this community? What are those things out there that are offending you? And then we have a different conversation, because now we are talking with a real person that is there, not because what I see on the media or what I was told or what, oh, I didn't know, or, you know, anyway, so I'm sorry I'm taking too long. But thank you, Rennie.
You know, we're running way over our allotted time. But I think that it sounds from what I've heard that we kind of need to move forward, and I don't know if it's the Public Works group that wants to make a recommendation on how we move forward. Will it be with these forums or some kind of forum? How do we come up with that
Can I say something?
next move?
I just wanted to make a quick comment about this. I think that these small groups and coming from that perspective is a really fine idea. We also have to think about, well, what is the goal? What are the goals? You have to also have some kind of goals involved, but also it feels as though it would take some training, some simple training of facilitators in order to have this happen. Because and I just don't, let's not overlook the perception of rank in the committee. So we have, if one of us is doing it, even though we're facilitating, we still have a position of rank, and people know that. So we just have to be aware and consider how that could work. However, we do want to know, we do want it to come together from all the different positions that are in the city. And I would just like to look at the process that they had in Virginia. Ward sent that particular process. Let's just review some of the processes as well of people coming together. I think if there can be something offered to everyone, you know, what if there was something truly beautiful across the street, and also we can figure out about the statues. What, you know, if things can be offered to the to all of us, beautiful things, then people are able to get to come together to come together for it. But kind of giving a vision can be very helpful, I think. Some kind one or two visions. Okay, that's all I want to say. Right now.
So Ward, yes.
Should the four of us on the who are currently on the Public Arts Committee and that other guy who's not on the commission anymore, should we talk now that we've heard it all and get back to you with some recommendations?
That's what I would suggest. Yes, that you get back to us with some recommendations.
Okay.
So for our next meeting, we'd love to hear that you looked at these different aspects and how we move forward. Yeah.
And we'll see what form we want our next meeting to take, and who knows, at this point. But I think this has helped us a lot think about possible next steps.
Yes. Okay. Great. That was really insightful and wonderful, and thank you, everybody. I learned a lot, and reminds
Thanks for
me
letting
of
me
being
fool
a
around in your China shop.
We didn't hear you, Renee.
I said, thanks for letting me bull around in your China shop. I'll take my time to leave.
I like the broken China. Yeah, I love the conversation. It reminds me of being a Unitarian. So anyway, moving right along. The master plan, Eddie, are you ready?
All right. So next steps for the master plan are to release the surveys that we put together. Thank you to everybody who provided some feedback on that. It was really helpful. I think we came around to a really good survey. We have two surveys that are being launched. We have a GIS mapping survey. So that's going to be a survey where folks are providing feedback about where certain locations are. It's going to help us understand a geographical understanding of how the city looks. And then the other survey that we're releasing is the kind of like cultural temperature taker survey. And that's the one that I shared with you all for feedback. We're currently getting it translated into Spanish. So we are pretty much almost there. Once we get the translation back together, we'll be able to share that with the community. We're really hoping that we can kind of promote this however we can. So support matters. Conversations about this matter. As members of the kind of guiding forces on this, we're kind of ambassadors for this project. So as many folks as we can talk to about the importance of completing things. There are a lot of surveys out there, so we are competing. So it's kind of one of our charges here is to really help promote that work. And hopefully we'll be able to kind of course, we're going to have physical versions of the survey as well. So I've been trying to figure out different spaces that we can leave surveys and things like that, if there are events that we can tag onto. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, so we're looking hopefully to have all the surveys done by the end of next week and be able to be launched. So feeling good. Then after that, we are getting into site visit time, which I'm really excited about. So it looks like Lord will be coming up on October 7th and October 8th. To do site visits. They're not going to be able to get to everything in that amount of time, but the site visits are going to be on the shorter side just because of COVID. We're probably not going to be able to spend too much time actually inside facilities, things like that. And this is just so that Lord can kind of get a chance to see things, because there's a difference between, just getting the data from the GIS mapping and actually physically seeing these spaces. So we'll be reaching out next week to start seeing who is interested in having one of these site visits. I've put together a fairly daunting list for our consultants, just because I want to make sure that they understand the scope and understand how many different things we have here. So just putting together that, and I'll be sure to share it with all of you so you can provide some feedback. The other thing that we're going to be working on for the next couple months is scheduling public meetings. Since we're probably well into 2021, not really going to be able to do very many in-person meetings, we will most likely be moving forward with virtual meetings. I just am concerned that if we hold off and try to wait for in-person, that we could be waiting well into 2021. And I think just in terms of momentum, I think going forward with the virtual meetings is going to be important. We can always investigate a hybrid, but the question of facilities is also something to take into consideration. If we do have people come out in person, we're taking their health into consideration. So we have to make sure that we provide safe resources for people and safe spaces for people to come and congregate. So one of the things that we're going to kind of be figuring out in the next coming weeks is what the themes of our public meetings are going to be. They don't all have to be set in stone, but I did want to share with you a couple of ideas that Ruth Ann and I had a conversation about. So I'm just going to pop these over into the chat and then I'll read through them. So we were thinking arts, businesses, and manufacturing, arts education, youth and family engagement in the arts, tourism and events in Kingston, professional development through the arts, public art, percent for arts, arts and government. So that might be a space for conversations we were having earlier. Gentrification and displacement, future of the arts in Kingston, very broad. Diversity in arts and culture, working artist sector meeting, nonprofits, arts, culture, and history organizations. So we are looking at about 5 meetings. So that is more topics than we have meetings for, but I always think it's better to kind of like brainstorm large and then dial in. And there are a lot of different things represented here. And I think there are a few ways to kind of group some of these ideas together. So feel free to take a look at some of those ideas and to, of course, provide feedback if you think that some things don't necessarily need to be in there, if you can see like creative way to branch some things together, and also if you feel that anything's missing. This is also going to go out to our PAC, so they'll be able to provide some feedback too. But I am looking forward to getting these meetings kind of figured out, because it's kind of a fun way to structure the different kind of conversations that we can have. So Lord would like to do 1 meeting in October, maybe even 2 if we can figure it out. And I think that that's totally doable, especially if we're doing virtual meetings. And again, with the virtual meetings, that's, a lot of things that, we're gonna have to kind of take on the ambassador role in and getting people interested. I think it would be a great time too to kind of, as we're going through coming up with what these meetings are going to be, thinking about who would be key people to reach out to, key communities to reach out to, and we're also investigating, seeing if we can pair specific committee PAC members together for specific meetings. So if people can't make it to all, at least everyone has one commitment for one meeting that they're going to show up to. So that is kind of the lay of the land right now. And if anyone has any questions or anything, always feel free to let me know. Peter?
I just had a quick thought about getting the survey out. I wonder if we could use our current distinguished artist and our former distinguished artist to ask them if they would send it out to their folks, because they've got big lists, I'm sure.
That's a great idea. I've also recorded a promo with Radio Kingston. We're going to encourage every PAC member to place a link for the survey onto their respective websites. And I would ask the same of anyone here who feels comfortable being able to do something like that. We're going to take out a few ads as well, just because we do have marketing budget. So we want to be able to utilize that. And then also, again, just making sure that we have those physical surveys, because we know not everybody has access or has, wants to fill out a survey online. And I think that, in COVID, we have different resources. So I love the idea of us thinking outside the box. I think Lara and Peter and Julie are really great tools to be able to get some positive energy out about the surveys. Hi, Lynn.
Lynn?
Can we share it on Facebook? I mean, if you put it on the city page, can we just share that?
Yep, we'll be putting it on the Engage Kingston page, so there will be a super easy way to share it. Another thing that we were able to secure is Catskill Art Supply generously donated a $25 gift card. So anybody who completes the survey is entered into a raffle for that. So we're hoping that that can kind of help, you know, motivate some folks. And I do hope also that while this is a survey, you know, about arts and culture, we also want to reach people who aren't traditionally in that world. So that's another reason why, you know, kind of really casting a wide net and putting those ads out in publications that aren't necessarily focused purely, like, you know, we're not just going to go to the chronogram kind of things. So I think that that'll be really helpful. Sending things out to schools, coordinating, I think the library is going to be really helpful. So we're pretty much going to kind of, once we get those links together, we'll be able to communicate with folks and see how we can get the word out.
Word?
Well, given the season we're in, it seems like a natural to leave the physical surveys at the Ulster County Board of Elections.
What a great idea. I love it. That's fantastic.
You could do two things.
Exactly. That's an awesome idea. I love that.
And the post office?
Post office is great. Yeah, I've been thinking about a few other things, like also, you know, going to farmers markets and things like that. And seeing also just if we can coordinate, because the schools are in a weird situation right now, just with everything being so all over the place. But if there are any events that are happening at schools or anything like that, we can just kind of collaborate. And of course, you know, city things that are going on as well. We're trying to have kind of like a collaborative energy right now, since we do have a lot of different public outreach, public engagement things that are happening right now. We're kind of trying to like do a communal lift. So I think that I love the idea of kind of thinking outside the box.
Addie, I just want to also, they have a webmaster, you know, at the Kingston City Schools. And so they would probably consider putting it on the school district website, and they might even send it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea.
There's also a group of interfaith religious leaders that meet, and they might be able to get it out to their congregations.
Awesome, excellent. Yes, as I was putting together our list of potential site visits, I made sure to include the mosque, and that was one of the recommendations that came from this group. So thank you for that. I love the idea of connecting with the faith leaders and just seeing, again, we can just kind of connect all of those dots, because we know there are quite a few faith places of worship that serve also as cultural arts locations. So that's great. I love that.
Okay. Is there any more questions for Addie? Well, I think we're ready to move. Oh, go ahead.
I do be sure to leave some at Academy Green. Okay.
Exactly.
Seriously, yeah.
We'll see if we can coordinate with Citizens Action, Engine, and all the other fantastic groups that are coordinating those walks.
On the statues, you know how they do in Rome, how they have that famous statue and people put all their notices on it?
Oh, neat. Yeah.
I have a few printouts available there too. All right. So if anyone has any other things that pop up, you know, or questions or anything, just always feel free to shoot over an email.
Okay, great. Thank you, Addie. Linda, do you want to tell us about, Linda, do you want to tell us about Art Walk?
Yes. So it is going September 26th and 27th. It's mainly going to be in two areas of Kingston, the Rondout, which is very nicely represented by the Art Port, where they're going to, the Art Walk Kingston artist will be on the bottom floor. She has another exhibit on the top floor. Of course, Ask has a fabulous exhibit up now. The Red Goat Awards and the Todd Samara Award are going to be held on Saturday down in that area. And then the Rear Center is going to be featuring their mural. And we're trying to find a nice piece of sculpture to put in the yard, the courtyard, right in front of the mural. And then in Midtown, the Cornell Creative Arts Center, the Fuller Building is where the majority of the artists will be placed. So if you've never been in the Fuller Building, that's the building directly behind the YMCA that Scott Dutton has renovated. It's pretty fabulous. And so you'll be able to wander through that. It's mainly on the bottom floor, but Scott Dutton did tell us you could go up to the other floors and see the public spaces, which there's an amazing photographer in there, and man, it's beautiful. Also there near the Fuller building, right behind it, I don't know if any of you have seen the amazing display that the YMCA put together around the garden, the Black Lives Matter portraits. It's really moving. And so for that weekend, they're going to have flowers available that you can go and visit the portraits on the fence and place flowers at the fence. So we're trying to also collaborate with Emily Flynn from the City of Kingston, who's trying to put together a chalk fun fest for kids, and we're trying to see if we can maybe put that in front of Artport. But there's a meeting for that tomorrow at noon, and I'll have more information. Anyway, it's popping. Oh, and everything's going to be virtual too. So there'll be a virtual gallery for those that just really don't still want to go out and walk in public spaces. And all that information is on artwalkkingston.com. That's it.
The draw is also part of the art walk, right?
Oh, yes, and that's, yes. I just made a note here, but yes, the draw. Sorry, you guys sprang up like a mushroom. I went into that building for the first time last week, and I got to see Maria Elena's exhibit, which is quite incredible. And I also got to see the building itself. It's really an amazing space. I know it's just going to become a little community heart there.
Nope. So, all righty. So thank you very much. And Anne, you want to talk about Mural in Midtown?
Yeah, this is really brief, but Frank Waters had called me, and apparently on the church at the Clinton Avenue church, they want to put a mural on that building. And of course, O Positive wanted an artist from New York City, and Frank was thinking maybe a local artist would do this or could do this. And I said I'd put it out there to look for recommendations or suggestions from maybe someone more regional that might do this. And again, at this point, we don't have policy on murals, but we didn't really talk about that part. As we talk about all these layers of the master plan and public art policy, we still don't really have policy. So, but he seems to want to do this. So that's the only part I'm covering today. So if you have, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
I actually Jordan stopped by to ask the same question. They were recruited by O Positive to put from what she said, that
Okay.
O Positive had reached out to them with an artist that they wanted to put there, and they are just thinking about it, and we're looking for suggestions for local muralists. I don't know a lot of muralists that are great off the top of my head, so again, I just think that it's interesting conundrum there. Yes, Ward.
I also think that I'd like to recommend that people haven't seen the mural at the Rear Center to go take a look, but make sure you take a look at the label that's on the sidewalk about the process that was gone through to create the mural, because we seem not in Kingston to embrace another strategy for doing these murals, which is working with young people to make the mural possible. Now, I mentioned before an organization in New York that does do this, but I was so impressed by the process that Julia Vogel went through with this mural, and it's very not O Positive, but it is so community intensive and has provided such pride for the kids who were involved. So I guess I would recommend taking a look and seeing what it could do to affect our decision.
Yes, and I just want to say that the way she worked it in terms of the community engagement, leaving it abstract, not having it be this illustrative thing that has, represent an individual. It was just so beautiful. So she left so much space for people to be creative and also understand what a symbol is and what all that kind of stuff is. It was really eloquently and beautifully done. It's a great example.
And also, I love the way that the kids themselves helped come up with the questions and with the structure of it. It wasn't just painting it, but they were actually part of the process from what I understand.
Yeah, really great.
I think it's a very powerful suggestion. And actually, I mentioned to Frank that he should take some time to talk within that community right there about what they think and how they feel, exactly what we're talking about now, and what would be most meaningful to them, not something that might land from outer space, which often is the way murals feel when they've come from somewhere and there's been no community input. But Richard had brought up the idea of children, and we did mention that to Frank, and how wonderful it is always to engage your youth in the community, in the conversation, and also in action, in doing, because they love to do and they love to be a part of what they see in their neighborhoods. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Linda, you're on the Distinguished Artist Awards for Susie. She's not here.
Oh, okay. I can share my notes with everybody. Addie was there, Susie and I. We had a nice discussion about how to do this. We estimated the best time putting it out there, just so for planning purposes, would probably be possibly November 12th. And Addie, it sounds like you have that tied up, right?
Yep, so I've reached out to Laura today, so hopefully we'll hear back from her. We can use council chambers, which I think will be really nice for continuity, because that's where we did our last Distinguished Artist Award. And it's fun to do a concert in council chambers because it's like not traditionally what you do in there. So I think it kind of sends a fun message. And we were thinking November might be nice, just because end of September seems like there's a lot of events happening. October has become kind of like we're not necessarily sure what's going to be going on. So November will kind of be nice right before we get into winter months, right before people go away for Thanksgiving. We can kind of do this fun award ceremony with our fantastic distinguished artists.
It's also after the elections. We wanted to make sure that people could focus on coming to give this artist her due. So, so for in terms of just the program, we thought it would be fun if we had some little pre-recorded things from previous awardees, just talking about how great it was, short testimonials about Laura, and then she would accept the award, and then she would do a performance. So, we're going to try to keep it pretty short, but we want it to be entertaining. We really want people to be there for her.
Yes, and Radio Kingston has really generously offered a lot of support for this. We're going to be able to simultaneously stream this on different Facebooks, so Laura's platform, Radio Kingston's platform, City of Kingston's platform, and I'm going to get a little bit more information on if there's a limit for how many different people we can broadcast through. But if there isn't, I'm going to suggest that we try to get as many folks as possible to kind of be a part of that. And I do think it'll be really nice too, just to kind of connect the dots again and remind folks that this is something really fantastic that the city and the Arts Commission put together to celebrate artists. So I do think that part of the program will be some sort of kind of Arts Commission presentation, maybe a speaker, something like that. We're trying to have the event done live just to kind of keep that energy. There will probably be a mix of pre-recorded elements like Linda was saying, but we, Radio Kingston, since they're offering support, we have a little bit more kind of jazz opportunities. And I think doing something live will make folks feel like they're tuning into something kind of think it's always cool to see something live. So yep, we're looking at November 12th. So as we get closer, promotions can be really important. But I think we're going to be able to do something really fun, and also always nice to get to see Lara perform. So that's going to be really fun.
Is there a time set for that? Not yet, right? It will be like at 6, 7, 5, when?
We were trying to figure that out. So I had suggested 7 to 8 as a time frame. Does anyone have any feedback on that?
I think it's fine. And we should mention too that this is a very small group that will be attending in person. It really will be just the commission and maybe the mayor and a few other folks, and family members from Laura's family. And it will be safe distanced and all of that. We'll follow all the protocols.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you very much. That's great. And so then I'm on for wrap up of the Celebration of the Arts. I don't think there's a lot to say except for that Celebration of the Arts was a month-long thing. We taught 72 kids through our free classes, which was great. And the clay project, we don't know exactly how many, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, I think 1,700 pugs were made and went out. Most of them went out to people, and we don't know how many have returned yet, but they're in the process of being fired, and they'll be displayed. They've been fired. That's great. So they're going to be.
They're here. There's a lot of them. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Great.
They look great.
And so they'll be displayed in the
building, right? They're in the Mad Building at Cornell Street.
Yeah.
I mean, at the Energy Square.
East Square.
Well, they're being fired now, and they're going to return to Energy Square as a display in the front window. And that'll be for Art Walk, and maybe hopefully before that weekend we'll get them installed. They're working on that right now. And so that's it. It was great. Yeah, worked out really well. Yes,
yeah,
Peter.
I would say we did the best with what we had, and what we had was COVID, unfortunately. But I think Lara's, classes were well attended, and the clay project was fun for people, because a lot of people didn't want to come into the studio, but they know we're there, and they took their clay piece home and made something at home, but they brought it back to a station to be fired. So yeah, the display is being made, and it should be fun to look at all of them. So people had a good time.
Yeah.
Wait, 1,700, that's huge.
Well, that's how much clay went out. That's not how many, but I would say it's over 500 easily.
I think we've got at least 500 figures here. So yeah, it would be fun to see them. They're great.
I still have 2 at home.
Oh, come on. We'll fire them. Bring them.
Oh, okay.
Drop them off.
Okay.
Peter, you can leave them at the front door.
I just wanted to ask if Linda would talk to us a little bit about the Ulster County Arts Awards.
Yeah, that was good.
I would love to if we have time. It was really fabulous, and I thank all of you for your support. I thank Peter for being a celebrity balloon popper. I don't know if all of you saw him in action, but boy, he was impressive. So was Addie, and I will tell you all a very funny story. So Addie was first, Trippy was second, and Trippy and Addie walked in the building at the same time, and Addie sat down and immediately just started, doing her thing quite extemporarily. And Trippy says, he goes, "Is she reading something?" And we said, "No, she's just, ad-libbing." He goes, "I can't do this. I can't do this." Anyway, Addie, that was an amazing performance. All of the awardees, I felt, were very grateful, and we got a lot of good feedback from having that event. It was very heartfelt. Some of the recording, the sound quality was not very good, but it was fun, and I loved the Marker Snyder drawing thing that wove in and out throughout the program. I actually had Nicole Fenichel Hewitt from The Artifact told me today that when Marker pulled out the piece of paper and made the mark on it and says that no judgment, you never judge yourself. She says, I just picked up a piece of paper and I started doodling just like he did. And at the end of the program, I had an entire sheet of paper filled with drawings. You know, she goes, you know, I'm not an artist. And I said, that's what art's all about. Anyway, thank you very much for asking, Peter. It was fabulous. Thank you for coming, all of you. It was a grand experiment, and I think it was fun. It was a fun night.
Definitely. I enjoyed watching all the different balloon popper styles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fantastic. It was fantastic use of the medium. Really, really good use of the medium. Fantastic.
It was fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have an amazing team that they really went the distance, and you know, I'm constantly amazed at the brilliant people that I am surrounded by. It's just really moving. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura,
Yes, Lynn.
we skipped Red Goat Awards.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ann.
Oh, I want to tie this in with Lynn because on September 26th, the Red Goat Awards will be given in a very small ceremony. And Addie and Lynn are our recipients this year. So we hope everyone from the commission will be there. We're going to do a very small ceremony in conjunction with the Todd Samara Award, which Lynn is going to talk about. We'll also be looking at Todd's restoration that's underway by Chris Gagne. So you'll get more information soon. I just saved the date. It's part of Art Walk. It's at 5 o'clock. So come over from wherever you are and please help us honor these great citizens who contribute so much to our culture and our consciousness. And so Lynn, I'll let you take it from there to talk about the Todd Samara Award.
Right. So I think as I mentioned the last meeting, Patty Gibbons is the winner. And so after Mad does the Red Goats, directly after we'll give Patty her award. She said that she will be there in person. And we're also going to have 2 tables out covered with some of Todd's work. I mean, it never ends. Nancy keeps pulling out boxes. So we'll try to sell some more work, raise a little more money. And then Chris Gagne, he will not have started probably by then, but he will be restoring the large mural by repainting it. Nancy actually found out the type of paint, a sign paint that Todd used, and found the company. Because otherwise it'd be very expensive. So we'll be using the paint. And then the other mural is in such poor condition that the committee decided rather than restore it, which would basically be an entire new painting, Timely Signs will be printing out a banner based on a photograph that Nancy took when it was new and in good condition. And that vinyl banner will then go, I guess it's in a window frame. It'll go in the window behind glass. I'm talking to Lisa at the museum about this. And then, and they're doing that pro bono for free. So that seemed like the best solution for that. So it'll be one mural restoration. The other will be this kind of a simulacrum of the one that was there with a little explanation in the corner. And hopefully Chris will be, I mean, he's taking care of his mom and has been very busy, but he is committed to doing the restoration, and hopefully we'll start soon.
Great. Okay, that's awesome. So many great things. So much going on. It's great. Any other new business or old business? We're on time. It's a miracle. Yes, Ward.
I just wanted to congratulate our fellow Arts Commission member on her exhibition on Cedar Street and Iwo Jima Place.
Can't wait to go Saturday.
If you haven't seen it, it's really fabulous, and it's a great step out for you in your fine arts career.
That's right. Turns out first solo exhibit for this talented young woman, and I know, hard to believe. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So everyone,
thank you.
Gotta see it.
And you do, and you know, you can see it as you drive by, but you cannot see it as you drive by. You have to see the entire piece or you haven't seen it. So we're there from 12 to 3, you know, keeping it open for visitors. We have by appointment. People have been stopping by. As long as we don't have our maximum in this space, you can come by and see it. So please do. Addie.
I had one other thing to say too. I got to go check out the annual, which was at Ask, so I got to go see that as well. If anyone has, it was awesome. It kind of felt like First Saturday because I got to go see multiple exhibitions in one day. So it was very exciting. So awesome to be able to see Maria Elena's amazing exhibition, and then to also be able to check out the collaboration between MAD and Ask to put on the Kingston Annual. The show's fantastic. Julie did a great job picking the work. So just wanted to congratulate everyone who worked on that because that was really awesome. So yay to our
city. What a city. Wow.
Our city. Okay, well, I think that's it. We did good. Look at that. Oh, yes, yes.
I got asked, Addie, today by UPAC. I'm on the board there, so they've kind of put me to the task to find out if the Arts Commission can put anything together for they're trying to do a public service thread announcement type of thing. And I wondered if Radio Kingston might help in some way, just to maybe talk about who we are and what we're doing and about the master plan. And it would be brilliant if you could say a few words on that.
You know,
Peter.
and what it's funny you say that, because when we were talking about venues for the master plan, I was thinking, why don't we use UPAC? It's huge. We could totally social distance. You know, 25 people in that space would be completely doable. I don't know if it's open for anything.
I brought it up. I had already asked Chris, and Chris said yes, as a matter of fact. But we felt, but the committee felt, and that it would be really important to do it at City Hall. Am I correct? So that it's really honoring the tradition of and attaching it also strongly to the city and to the mayor and to Addie and the people who serve the city. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, Peter, I think, was there a misunderstanding? Were you talking about using UPAC for any of these public meetings
for the master plan?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Not for the celebration of the arts. I mean, for the celebration, whatever, but for the master plan, because that does make a lot of sense. They have, of course, the stage is huge, and even their green room there is huge. You could get 25 people in any one of those places. That's a great idea.
And they have acoustics. They have microphones. You know.
They have all of that, and they are not doing anything.
The public though, because the public meetings would be open to the public, so that would mean anybody who wanted to show up could come to them. So is UPAC open? Or have they like kind of opened their doors?
I had only asked them for the ceremony around the Distinguished Artist Award, where I said, well, what if we allowed 25 people in there, and then Laura could play up on stage with real sound and lights and really in a kind of sexy, wonderful venue. But yeah, so that's all I asked about.
Yeah,
it might be open to a percentage of capacity at this point. I don't know that for a fact, but I know some venues are open at that.
Yeah, no, they haven't opened at all. And in fact, they're down to bare bones staff. And that was one of the big concerns with Chris, was that they have so few people that work there now. To create a safe setting is almost impossible. So that's the problem there. But I'll investigate.
Addie, that one of the questions I had and I didn't get to when you were talking about the public meetings, I mean, they're public, so do you expect huge turnout?
I mean, not necessarily. I don't think people are particularly ready to be in large numbers and enclosed spaces. So if they're outdoors, I think folks will show up. But I think if they're indoors, I don't anticipate us having too many folks showing up, which is why we kind of have to like do the virtual thing. I think that we'll just get more folks coming if we do virtual. I think if we do in person, we run the risk of one, having to limit to capacity, and then virtuals are unlimited. And then we have been talking about the hybrid thing, that the only question about that is how do you set up a hybrid event so that it's a simultaneous kind of happening?
So I just did this and I can talk to you about it.
Let's do that. I would love to
I
bring
think the hybrid event is a perfect thing to do for this sort of thing. And you know, I'd love to think that we are going to be getting 3,000 people, you know, to one of our meetings. I don't really think so, though.
No. Yeah. Well, we want to try to encourage as many folks as possible to come. So I think I'd love to talk to Peter a little bit more about how we can make that work, so that we can, you know, kind of go and check out all of our resources, kind of similar to, you know, so interesting when we were talking about the Distinguished Artist Awards after we had the experience of the Ulster County Arts Award. It was really informative to kind of have the experience and kind of go from there. So definitely going to be sending you an email, Peter. And yeah, if anyone else, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just,
oh, sorry. If you want to have a huge screen to project something, I think that you can count with the Movies with Spirit screen that is, I don't remember how many feet, but it's huge.
well, and I also just want to point out at the Bardavon or the UPAC, I mean, this isn't a concert, right? It's just a meeting. So they might have the capacity for a meeting. They open up their green room with no help from anybody and a microphone. It's not hard. So they might be open to something like that as a hybrid, as opposed to, you know, a concert, which they could not, you know, handle. But anyway, just ideas. Great that you guys are going to talk about this and figure it out. And so it is 6 o'clock. Anybody want other to say or call the meeting?
I present a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, second. Very good. Meeting is adjourned. Good to see you guys.